What's up YouTube, Capital G here doing the discussion on Metalfoes in this video, and I'm doing this discussion for a couple of reasons. For one, I think that they've definitely earned it because whether you know or not, Metalfoes actually won a YCS over the weekend. That was pretty much the reason for the price spike of Cleefort Monolith over here. Metalfoes actually won a YCS in Mexico City. This is actually the first place deck list of that event, and secondly, I think that I've pretty much snubbed Metalfoes on this channel. I really haven't talked about them. I didn't put them in my my Yu-Gi-Oh hierarchy, my top 10 decks of the format. By the way, that was not by accident. I did that purposely because I didn't think that the deck was going to be that strong. In fact, I think I've honestly been bad talking pendulums for a while now, basically since the start of the format, and that does not include DDD. I have the utmost respect for that deck, but Pendulum Domination doesn't come out until next year. I didn't think that this version of the deck was going to be that strong. Like I think that Metalfoes Yang Zing is an extremely strong deck that's you probably wouldn't run you probably would not want to run that until Invasion Vengeance, but I just didn't really think that this was going to be super successful. And for anybody questioning if this is a Metalfoes deck, like this is as Metalfoes-y as you're pretty much going to get. Like if you're running 10 Metalfoes monsters in the main deck, you're running your fusion, which every version does, and then you're running a couple of copies of the traps, whether it be combination or counter. Like I think that that definitely qualifies as a Metalfoes deck. That's like 13 cards. It's like a third of your deck, so it definitely qualifies in my book. But one of the reasons that I didn't see this happening where Metalfoes are instantly hitting the ground running, well, you know, they're topping regionals, they're topping ARGs, they're winning YCSs and whatnot, and it's looking like it is definitely a contender for tier 1. Is I think I got tunnel visioned when I was looking at a lot of the deck lists from the OCG. You know, I saw the 3 copies of Banku, I saw the 3 copies of Magic Spectre Unicorn, and I was like, okay, it's just another Karen deck. It's just, you know, pretty sure that so much of this deck revolves around Karen being kind of the crutch and the be-all end-all. And when Karen got limited, I was like, well, shit, you know, rip that deck. But no, the deck is actually super resilient, and I think the best thing about Metalfoes is the fact that you can pretty much incorporate whatever the hell you want into this deck. It's very similar to Magicians. I actually think that Metalfoes are kind of like the evolution of Magicians. I'm talking about like spiritually. I mean in the sense of you have these super wide scales of 1 and 8, and you can pretty much put whatever you want in here. You can put Karen, you can put mini Magic Spectre engines, little pocket-sized engines of just 3, Banku and Karen. You can put your, you know, your Klee engine in here if you want. You can put Apex Avions. I've seen players do that, and you can hit your opponent from all these different sides. You know what I mean? The fact that this deck has a 1-card Cyber Infinity is pretty freaking nutty. And if you're wondering how you get a 1-card Cyber Infinity, essentially you just play your Cleefort Scout, which, by the way, in this version of the deck, Cleefort Scout is searchable by Summoner's Art, which is, there we go, Summoner's Art and Odd Eyes Rebellion, or Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, not Rebellion Dragon, that's not in here. But you play your Scout, you pay 800 life points, you get your Monolith, and then you use any of your Metalfoes, you blow the Scout up, and then once you have your Pendulum scale set, you just end up penduluming the Scout that you just blew up, and then you pendulum the Monolith that is obviously in your hand that you just searched, and boom, you just overlay them for Nova, then overlay them for Infinity, and you know, you've got a great defensive card that's ready to absorb monsters. And I mean, how many decks can say they have just a instant 1-card Cyber Dragon Infinity that's also searchable? Like that's pretty damn ridiculous in my personal opinion. You also get access to the fact that just Gofu works so good in this deck. Like I think Gofu is one of the reasons that Metalfoes is so strong right now. It's actually pretty odd because Metalfoes at their core, they're a fusion deck, but they just synchro so well. A lot of it has to do with Gofu and how ridiculous this card is. It seems like this card is super good and everything. We know what it does for Dark Synchro, but why Gofu is good in this deck is, if you look at Metalfoes builds, you'll notice that they run so many level 3s. Like a lot of just Pendulum decks in general run Archfiend Eccentric, so that's a level 3. When you run the Magic Spectre engine, you get Raccoon, that's a level 3. You also have Silvered, which is a level 3 inherently the deck has. So these give you the ability to just special summon your Gofu, and then just normal summon any of the cards that I just said, and bam, you've got your instant Ignister, you've got your instant, you know, Void Ogre Dragon, if you want to go that route, which is is cool because this thing it's not the easiest thing in the world to make, but since Gofu happens to be dark, you know, that's a great lock card that you can put on the board and potentially lock your opponent out of spells and traps. Gofu is also stupidly good in this deck because, like, Gofu's cool and dark synchro and whatnot, but it's really cool in this deck because we know that the Metalfoes allow you to blow up face-up cards on your side of the field so that you can search the spells and traps. Obviously, Metalfoes Fusion is pretty good because when it's in the graveyard, you send it back and just draw a card, but these guys can actually pop the tokens that Gofu summons and you can search too, so you're actually just going like plus a lot there. And you can actually use, if you decide to run Sky Iris, I actually did that. I was playing against the computer just trying to like figure out some of the basic combos. You can do the same thing. You can play Sky Iris and play a Metalfoes Pendulum card, and you can basically blow up both of those counters and then just get a whole bunch of advantage. So it's actually really cool. But I think that Metalfoes are they're really cool because they can super stun you out of the game. It's actually crazy that this deck has so much stun. I feel like it shouldn't have this much stun because if you look at like the old Pendulum Magicians, I feel like that deck did not have nearly this much stun outside of maybe opening with like, you know, multiple Apex Avions and stuff. But you look, okay, so we've got Corinne, we all know that's a great stun card. You know, you have one card Cyber Dragon Affinities, that's pretty stunny. You have the ability to synchro for 8s, including Void Ogre Dragon, Ignister, and Stardust Spark Dragon. Stardust Spark Dragon is super important in this build, or super important to this deck because of Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness is really scary in this deck. Well, it's a scary card in general, who are we kidding? But it's super scary in this deck because if you make Spark Dragon, then obviously you get the whole Spark Dragon combo with Emptiness, where your opponent can't really blow up the Emptiness with like an MST because you just protect it, and they can't out the Emptiness with like a Regeki if you have Spark Dragon because you can just protect the Spark Dragon. So like the deck actually has a lot of like lockdown potential, and it's actually just pretty crazy. You're gonna start probably seeing a lot of players splashing in copies of cards that don't let the opponent special summon, because I've actually noticed that some way, somehow, people are starting to take Regeki out of the main deck. You see right here, this guy doesn't run Regeki in his main deck, and he actually decided to run Jogan the Spiritualist, but this could easily be something like Fossil Dyna in this deck, something that you can Pendulum Summon, something that stops your opponent from being able to special summon. And if you just want to go off, right, let's just say your opponent's like, all right, well, since you can't special summon and all you have is one monster on the board, I feel like I don't have to set my defense. I know you can't do anything. Well, your opponent always has to be aware, even if it appears that you can't special summon, because keep in mind that things like Vanities and Jogan, or if you played Fossil Dyna in this deck, you could just pop those at any given time. So it's like you can play these floodgates in this deck, but at any time you can just turn them off and just kill your opponent, because this deck, it always has that trump card in its back pocket of, we can just blow up all of our Metalfoes and then just pendulum them all back and just kill you. It's very similar to Cleeford, how, you know, maybe they tribute a couple, like, remember like the disc plays where you tribute a couple for disc, and then, you know, you'd end up summoning those couple that you just tributed back from disc, and a lot of times it'd be like an OTK. This deck can essentially do the same thing. Like, you blow up your scales occasionally, and if your opponent leaves their field open, you just summon these monsters back. And even though they are vanilla on the field, I mean, shit, they can still attack. Like, you know, Wolfflame has 2400 attack. Like, that's nothing to sleep on. You know, Silver is 1700, Gold Driver is 1900. So these attacks definitely add up. And I don't know, guys, I'm actually surprised. But when you look at this deck and you see just the fact that they can run whatever, it seems like the deck is super adaptable because it can incorporate things to handle pretty much any situation, which I would imagine makes side decking super easy, by the way. Whenever you can just say, all right, you know what, we don't need these Jogans because we're playing against a deck that doesn't special summon that much, so we can just side in some more easy, like, it just makes it very easy to counter a lot of the meta when you have so much open space in your deck, and you know that at any given time, if you have a dead monster, you just blow it up and search for something else. So let me know what you guys think. The one last thing I wanted to talk about is this deck's interaction with Ultimaya Tzolk'in, which is actually pretty cool. Ultimaya can be summoned relatively easily in this deck. You just basically need to give up your Gofu and then your Adamante, which, I mean, Adamante is just a very easy card to summon, considering you get your fusion spell straight from the deck anytime you activate one of these, or at least you have the ability. So what's cool about Ultimaya is in most decks, you actually need a hand to use Ultimaya's ability. You have to set something, a spell or trap or whatever. In this deck, you don't don't technically need a hand. All you have to do is activate any of your Metalfoes cards, and then you can just set your combination, you can set your fusion, you can set your counter, and you will actually trigger Ultimaya's effect. Furthermore, what's cool about this deck is when you have Ultimaya up, you can just summon Ignister, which like it's not something you generally see people do, summoning an Ignister off of Ultimaya, but it's cool in this deck because this being a pendulum deck, obviously, you know, like if you have any monster on the field that's just kind of sitting there like an eccentric archfiend or whatever, you can just blow that up and just like non-targeting removal, just get rid of anything your opponent has. So non-targeting removal is definitely not gone out of style. It's still incredibly powerful, and outside of like Trishula, Necros of Trishula, and like Tiramisu, there's still not that many good options in the game. So Ultimaya is it's very powerful in this deck, and I mean, of course, we know things like Crystal Wing and Void Ogre Dragon can just win games themselves. You can even throw Bills in this deck as well. If you just felt like you had the space, maybe you didn't want to run some of the other cards, you could totally throw a Bills in here. So anyways, let me know what you guys think of Metalfoes. Do you guys think that the deck is a strong contender? Well, I mean, I guess you kind of have to now, right? It already won a YCS, but there is another YCS coming up. We'll see at that event. Where do you guys think like we should put Metalfoes on the tier list, even though tier lists have lost a little bit of significance considering everything in the world seems to be topping right now? Whatever that is, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always, and subscribe if you have not already.